What's up, everybody? Matt Moran here for another weekly update. So there's tons of news to go over this week, and the first is some pretty exciting news from Acura here, and so that is that they're going to be showing a new Type S model. It's going to be a prototype, supposedly, but they're going to be showing it at Monterey Car Week here in about 2 weeks on August 15th. So now the way Honda and Acura do prototypes, usually it's very close to production with very slight tweaks possibly, but I mean basically this is going to be a production model most likely. And so what we can see here, first off, you can see the side shot. It's going to be a very long sedan, very similar probably in look to the Acura Precision concept, at least in the proportions if nothing else. And this could be a top trim that they're going to have to replace the RLX, or this could be something else unique. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Then we have the back end teaser there, which shows a sporty rear bumper with what's probably going to be quad exhaust tips and some very cool looking tail lights. And then we also get a quick look at the front end too, which gives us some NSX vibes, I think, up front there, and definitely some inspiration from there. And looks pretty striking from the little bits we can kind of piece together so far. But yeah, so the reveal is going to be in about 2 weeks here, and so excited to see more of that. Another car that's going to be shown here at Pebble Beach is the new Pagani Huayra Roadster BC, and so this is even more powerful than the BC Coupe, but is slightly heavier, of course, since it's convertible. So as far as performance goes, they did actually try and even it out. Even though this is a little bit heavier, it is a little bit faster than the regular BC. So it still only weighs 2,756 pounds, and I think that's a dry weight, because if that's curb weight, then that's basically like 250 pounds heavier than a Miata RF. In a vehicle with over 700 horsepower, which is just mind-blowing. But I mean, even still, it's very light, even if that is the dry weight. And even the regular Huayra Roadster is 2,900 pounds, basically. So this is a good almost 170 pounds lighter, which is awesome. But anyway, it has a completely new, according to them, Mercedes-AMG 6-liter twin-turbo V12. So Mercedes-AMG has been doing the twin-turbo V12s for Pagani for a while now, but I guess this is going to be a little bit different here in the Huayra BC Roadster. Anyway, this new engine does 791 horsepower, 774 pound-feet of torque. So that's, I think, a few dozen horsepower more than what you got on the regular BC. It's also got this restyled aero that gives you this new rear wing. Front inlets are redone, and it has all that active aero, and all that is combined to help this car generate peak lateral G-forces of 2.2 G, they're claiming. I think they said 1.9 sustained, but at peak loads, it's 2.2, which is just very, very impressive. It also generates 1,102 pounds of downforce at 174 miles per hour. So, I mean, very, very impressive. Only 40 of these cars will be built with a starting price of around $3.4 million. So, I mean, it's Pagani, but that is really crazy. And so anyway, interesting to see that. Porsche has revealed their new base model for the 911. So, they revealed the 2020 911 Carrera S at the LA Auto Show back in the fall. And so, this is the non-S version now that we're seeing. And it looks identical to, the S version. Basically, the only difference is you get rectangular exhaust tips as standard. But if you go for the sport exhaust, then you get the same oval tips as the S anyway. So if you do a sport exhaust base Carrera, you're going to have identical looks basically to what you get on the S model. Power is much lower though, so that's what you're losing out on. The S has 443 horsepower, 390 pound-feet of torque. The base model still uses, I think, the same 3-liter turbo flat 6, just like the S, but this one only makes 379 horsepower and 331 pound-feet of torque. So I mean, way down from that 443 to basically 380 here. So it is still 9 horsepower more than what you got on the old Carrera, so that's good. And PDK is now standard as well, but we do know that a manual is coming later on, and that will be available, I'm guessing, for both. They just talked about the S, but I think it's going to be available for this as well. But anyway, with the PDK here, the base Carrera still does 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. If you get the Sport Chrono package, which gives you the launch control, the Cabriolet is 4.2, so that's a little bit of a slower one there, but still very quick. The regular Carrera also gets standard Porsche active suspension management like the S, so you really aren't missing out on much other than the power here with the base Carrera. The wheels are slightly smaller than the S as well, running 19s in the front and 20s in the rear as standard, but of course you can upgrade those to the same wheels as the S if you'd like. Brakes are a little smaller too, with 4 pistons up front instead of 6 for the braking there. Otherwise, rear brakes are the same, 4 pistons on both the S and the regular in the rear there. But anyway, including destination, the base price for the Carrera here is going to be starting at $98,750, which is $7,400 more than the old base 911. But this car does come standard with PDK now, which was a several $1,000 option on the previous gen Carrera. So that makes up some of that difference, but still is a decent price hike. And anyway, the Cabriolet is going to be starting at $111,550, and he's going to be arriving early next year. So very cool to see that. And some other Porsche news very briefly. The 2020 Panamera was spied testing with almost no camo on it here, thanks to my spy photographer Brian Williams, and looks to have some larger quad LED lights up front there, kind of a new variation on that same theme we've seen before. You also are going to likely have a revised light bar in the rear to look more close to the new 911. And according to Brian Williams' intel here, it's also likely to be getting the same new power plant that all the new Audis are getting, with the 48-volt mount hybrid system attached to that 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6 that you get in the S and the 4S models here. And so that'll help eliminate turbo lag and make the performance even better here for the new Panameras that could be debuting as soon as this fall at the LA Auto Show, but we'll have to wait and see. Could be sometime later too, or sometime sooner as well. Speaking of new Audis though, the 2020 S7 and S6 were revealed with all the details this week. So we've already kind of seen some of these images in the European reveal, but now we have all the details. It is officially going to be downsizing engines, going from the V8s they used to have now to the twin turbo V6 from the Audi RS5, the 2.9 liter, and it does 444 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque in both cars. In the S6, it'll do 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, and it's 0.1 seconds slower for the S7 at 4.5 seconds. They also get that 48-volt hybrid system that I mentioned that runs an electric compressor to spool up that turbo ahead of time so that you don't have any kind of turbo lag, which is cool. They also get standard adaptive suspension and bigger brakes, and there's also an S Sport package you can get as well that gives you 4-wheel steering, a torque vectoring rear differential, and a sport exhaust system. Inside, it gets all the newest Audi tech, of course, with the digital gauges, dual touchscreens there in the center stack. Pricing is also much lower for the S6 than it is for the S7. That's some of the details we got here for the States this week is pricing. So the S6 is going to be starting at $74,895, including destination, which isn't too bad. But then for some reason, the S7 goes up $10,000 exactly, and the starting price for an S7 is $84,895. So kind of strange to make people pay an extra 10 grand for basically the hatchback versatility and nothing else. Otherwise, they're identical as far as the interiors and the performance and everything else. So not sure why the S7 is so much more expensive, but that's the way they're playing it. And so anyway, interesting to see that. Other Volkswagen Group news here is that the electric Volkswagen SUV was spied for the first time this week here. And so this is the first of the ID cars that have been shown in concept form. This is the first one we're going to be getting. We know the ID hatch is coming to Europe first, but we're not getting that here in the States, at least for now. So it looks like it's going to have a lot different of a shape than the ID Cross concept that it was originally based on, and so it looks a lot more practical. You know, it's less of a coupé SUV and more of a normal SUV. It looks to have a grille area that's concave as well, which looks kind of interesting. Again, it is very well camoed, so it's a little hard to see, but you can also see little air curtains at the edges of the front bumper there, so it should have a fairly sporty look, a definitely more aggressive look, I think, than what you see on Teslas and stuff like that. So that's actually cool. They're kind of going a different direction, and I appreciate that. The lights also look pretty cool with some pretty thick accent lighting there. Usually it's a little thinner, and it makes it look a little bolder, I think. And so Volkswagen originally said they'd like to start production of these in 2020, and this prototype seems fairly far along, so I personally think, you know, it could reach production by the end of next year pretty easily, but some other publications are saying that they're now expecting it to not arrive until 2022, which sounds a little far out considering this car looks like it's almost ready to go already. And again, with these electric architectures, you know, it's probably very similar to the ID hatch, which is almost ready to go. So if you just kind of put that same thing in this, it shouldn't take as long to develop. And so if we're seeing a pretty close to finished prototype already, I can't imagine this taking another 2.5 years to get on the market. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Lotus this week has revealed the 2020 Evora GT, and so this is the fastest Evora we've ever gotten here in the States, but it is still slightly slower than the Evora 430 that Europe got. But anyway, this GT version runs the 3.5-liter supercharged V6 like it has before, but it now makes 416 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque. I think you get like 330 pound-feet if you go for the automatic version, but standard, you do have the option of a 6-speed manual, which is awesome. 0 to 60 is 3.8 seconds, and they say that's the same whether you go for manual or auto, so that kind of, to me, hints that the automatic probably isn't the fastest shifts, so I would, stick with the manual probably there, although I've never driven an Evora. Rode in one once and was really impressed with it a while back, but yeah, I would love to take one of these new ones for a spin, because it only weighs 3,104 pounds, so again, a vehicle that is, just pretty light for 416 horsepower, and that's also with the optional lightweight packages. So I guess a standard Evora is about 3,200 pounds, but you can get like a titanium exhaust. You can also get a bunch of extra carbon fiber stuff that lowers that weight down to that 3,104 number. It also gets some tweaked styling as well here, make it look a little racier than a standard Evora does. And so anyway, pricing is going to be starting at $96,950, and it's going to be available by the end of this year. So cool to see that. Another very hot mid-engine car, the 2020 Corvette, is so hot actually that GM's design chief told Autoblog this past week that I think the orders have already hit the first year of production numbers. So that means if you haven't already ordered a C8 Corvette, you're not getting a 2020 model year, you're getting a 2021 model year, and you're likely waiting at least a full calendar year from now before you'll have one, probably maybe even a little later than that. So they didn't say how many Chevys producing each model year or what their production capacity will be, but, it's safe to say there's at least going to be several thousand of these things roaming the streets next summer. It's going to definitely be the hottest car, I think, of next year, and they will be everywhere, considering the low price and the fact that everyone is jumping for this. So, yeah, expect to see those everywhere in 12 months or less. There's other news here about another very highly anticipated model, and that is the Ford Bronco. We have a couple little hints at the future names for trims most likely this week. So Motor One and Ford Authority have found trademark applications for Bronco Big Bend, Bronco Outer Banks as some of probably trim levels. It could be special editions, but Motor One's thinking here, which I tend to agree with, is that they are going after the Wrangler in every possible way. So, the Wrangler has the Rubicon trim, the Sahara trim, so this is Big Bend trim or Outer Banks trim. Seems a little weird. Outer Banks is just like a normal beachy like vacation destination. Doesn't sound like a rugged Bronco trim. Maybe that's the more luxurious one, but still, just Outer Banks just makes you think of sand and water, not necessarily any kind of off-roading or anything. Anyway, so that's what was trademarked. There's other trademarks that they've already, I guess, made previously, and I think I mentioned a few briefly in the past. Bronco Scout is one of the ones. Bronco Sport is also one, and that applies not only to trims, I think, but most likely to other parts. So, accessories could be called Bronco Sport for the branding and stuff. And then Adrenaline, Badlands, and Wild Track. And those last three, they're thinking could actually be applied to the new Ranger, the next-gen Ranger, instead of the Bronco, but they could go for either vehicle. We'll have to see. It could even be applied to that new Adventurer that we saw just about last week. I showed this first spy shots of that, so they could be that as well. We'll have to wait and see, but hopefully the fact that we're getting some more trim names and stuff means that the Bronco is closer to actually being revealed in production form, hopefully, or at least even a concept would be nice. All we've seen is the logo so far. So anyway, we'll have to wait and see, but anyway, interesting to hear that. We also have a few not so great news stories this week, unfortunately. So Nissan announced it's cutting 10% of its global product lineup because of their poor sales and lower profits, much lower profits. And so, global, that means it's going to be hard to tell which ones we're getting here in the States and which ones are getting cut. And they haven't announced any cars that are getting cut yet. They just said 10% of whatever is getting cut. But I think it seems likely that the Nissan Maxima, the 370Z, and the Infiniti Q70 seem to be the top picks to most likely be killed off, but we'll have to wait and see. You know, they could kill off more, they could, you know, save some of those models. It's just, you know, the Maxima has a lot of overlap with the Altima now, even though the Altima doesn't come with a V6 or offer it. You do get the turbo engine, which is very close in performance to that V6, and you can get all-wheel drive now in the Altima. So, you know, there really is no excuse for the Maxima to be around in a lot of ways, considering they're so close in size now that the Altima continues to balloon in size. 370Z just doesn't sell. Same with the Q70. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Automobile Magazine is also reporting that BMW is planning to kill off some of its models. And so this is according to their insider sources. But it doesn't make a ton of sense, some of the models. I mean, they have a new CEO at BMW now, and he's making aggressive cuts and stuff. But this still just seems strange, considering how much money they have invested in some of these new models that are talking about getting killed off. So Europe is going to be losing more, and basically anything under 40,000 euros is likely to get killed off, aside from, you know, a few of the mainstream ones. But the ones we're going to be getting losing here in the States supposedly are the 2 Series convertible. No surprise there. But later on, they're supposedly planning to kill off the brand new BMW X2 that was just revealed last year. The 8 Series coupe and convertible also could be killed off, I'm guessing at the end of their life cycle and not sooner than that, considering, again, they just invested all this money to bring those to market. And then supposedly the new Z4 will be the last generation of the Z4, and there will not be a next gen version of the Z4. So I'm guessing, you know, the Z4 will have the next few years here and then probably get a light refresh and then live a few more years. So I mean, everyone's assuming this is going to be around for at least maybe 8 years or so, maybe a little less, but that's kind of the thinking. So I mean, this is all very long-term stuff, but it does show that BMW's, again, they got to go full on in the electric stuff. They got to go and focus on the ones that sell a lot more. Like they are, I guess, supposedly working on very quickly an X8 that's going to be sportier than the X7, and not just an X7 with a racier roofline. It's going to be a different vehicle, and that's going to have, you know, a lot more sales to it, I think, than like a new Z4 would or something like that. So that's kind of why they're focusing on that stuff. So anyway, these are just rumors, so we'll have to wait and see, you know, how much of that turns out to be true. Also, it's something that does sound a little more solid here is Australian publication Motoring spoke with Mercedes-AMG's product planner this week, who said that AMG cars will start getting quieter and quieter to meet the new European sound regulations. And so they said, I guess maybe the A45 and the CLA 45 could be some of the first ones to kind of get these cuts. And so supposedly, you know, the European sound regulations really cracking down on making cars quieter, so you can't have tons of loud crackles and pops and bangs and, you know, super loud exhaust. And so they also, in the European testing, supposedly require the cars to be tested in their loudest mode. So that means you can't have a multi-mode exhaust save the day here with a quiet mode. It's gotta be in its loudest setting, so that doesn't fix the issue. And then he also says it's too expensive to design different exhausts for different markets. So that means that even though, you know, we don't have any sound restrictions here in the States, we'll still be getting this quieter exhaust because Europe mandates that. And so to try and keep the car sounding good, they're going to be focusing on this new AMG Pure Performance Sound thing, which is software that pumps it through the speakers. But they do say that it takes real sound from the exhaust, and then those same pulses are then reproduced through the sound system to give it a very real sound, hopefully. Now we'll have to see how that works in practice, but sounds a little more promising than just some, you know, filler noise that they pump in other vehicles. So we'll have to wait and see, but it sounds like aftermarket exhaust companies could be in for a nice little boost in business. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, a little sad to hear that. But the last story of the week here, I want to go out on a high note, and that is there's a company that thankfully doesn't have to worry about European noise regulations, and that's Dodge, and they certainly don't care about staying quiet. And I usually don't talk about manufacturer incentives or deals or sales because that's not really news as far as new cars or anything, but this one is just too awesome to not talk about. And so as of August 1st, Dodge has this Power Dollars program that gives you a 10% or $10 discount per horsepower on the Challenger, Charger, and Durango. So this means the more horsepower you buy, the bigger your discount. So they're incentivizing people to get the highest horsepower possible. So that means the max discount you can get is a $7,000, $970 discount on the 797 horsepower Hellcat Red Eye. So basically almost $8,000 off of a Hellcat Red Eye, which makes those a lot more reasonable because they are, a good bit more expensive than the regular Hellcat. And so now to get that extra 80 horsepower here, it's, a little bit less expensive. I mean, but even the regular Hellcat gets that healthy discount of $7,170 thanks to its 717 horsepower. So that puts the starting price now, at least this month, of a Hellcat at around $54,000 for a base Hellcat, which, I mean, that is a bargain in my mind. I mean, that's way under, like, even the GT350, way under the ZL1. Obviously, probably doesn't handle as well, although I was very impressed with the wide body's handling with its 305 wide grip all around with those tires. But still, I mean, $54,000 for 717 horsepower. What a time to be alive. That is just fantastic and very tempting. So if you were on the fence about getting a Hellcat, I would definitely go for it. Or even the Scat Packs and stuff, you get almost $5,000 off of those too. So anyway, Dodge continues to be awesome, and all is right in the world as far as the horsepower wars go. So awesome to see that. But yes, that's it for all the news this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.